So next we're going to be looking at how to use and set up the tick marks within the Audit Toolbar. Okay, so first things first, I want to show you how to use them. So we have two tick mark types. Firstly, embedded tick marks, and secondly, we've got image tick marks. Now, by default, everybody is set to image tick marks, and they have their strengths and weaknesses, and I'll discuss all of them as we go through them. But let's start off with using these image tick marks. So to add a tick mark to my document, what I need to do is simply head over here. You'll see if you click on this more drop down over here, there's even more tick marks. Granted, sorry, mine are in black, so they're black on black, so it's a little bit difficult to see, but they're all in here. And so if I want to use a tick mark, I'm simply going to go ahead and click on the tick mark and it will show up. What you'll also notice is that if you hover over the tick mark, it will tell you what is the legend that goes along with that specific tick mark. So you can see the one that we've just added, it literally just says verifies and agrees. Okay. And once I've added a tick mark, or once I'm done with my document, generally we want to add a tick mark legend to explain what each of these tick marks mean. And adding a tick mark legend is as easy as going down to the bottom of your document where you want to add your tick mark legend, click on the more drop down, go to tick mark legend and create. Okay, and that creates the tick mark legend for you right there. Now, if I go in and add another tick mark, what you'll notice is my tick mark legend stays the same. But I can go into the more drop down, into tick mark legend and refresh my tick marks. Okay, my tick mark legend, and that will then add the other tick mark legend item there. So I'm just going to add, let's just say, an entire row over here of this tick mark. And now I realize that actually I didn't want this to be everywhere. I only wanted it to be at the top and at the bottom. So all of these tick marks I want to delete. This is where it comes in, the difference comes in of it being a embedded tick mark or an image tick mark. When we have an image tick mark, these individual items are images that you can actually click on and delete. But the great thing about it is, even though it's an image, it's still going to be stuck to this cell. So even if I move the cell around, it's still going to keep the tick mark there. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, when I want to delete these, normally you'd have to go through a very intense process of selecting each and every single tick mark individually and deleting it. But because of this, we've realized that that's no way to go. So we're going to make this easy for you in the Audit Toolbar, and we're going to allow you to select the cells that your tick marks are in, right, from top to bottom, and then you can go into the more drop down and you'll see there's a delete selection option. And when you click on delete selection, right, we can then go ahead and click on OK again, and that will delete all of the tick marks that are in that specific space. Now, if I wanted to delete all my tick marks, right, I also have the option to delete all tick marks right here, and that would delete literally all of the tick marks that I've got on my document, including my legend as well. Okay, so that's the image tick marks. Now, I want to show you that with the image tick marks, in order to move its placement, right? So if I add a tick mark right now, you'll see it gets added to the left of the cell. In order to move the placement, I can go into manage tick marks over here, right? And in here, there is tick mark location. So you've got the option to either have it on the right, the left, or centered. Left is what we currently have. So let's see what happens if we put it to the right, right? So I've selected right, and when I click on my tick mark now, you'll see right puts it on the edge of the cell on the right, but it still relates to this cell over here. So if I wanted to remove them, I'd need to select them here. Okay, that's what right does. And then center is as you would expect it to be. It is very simple. Click on center there, and when we click on this, you'll see it comes up in the middle. Now let's look at the embedded tick marks. Okay. Now, an important thing to note with the embedded tick marks is that it only works on Office 365 Microsoft Excel version. So if your Excel version has a 2016 or a year at the end of it, you will have to use only the image tick marks. Okay, but let's look at what makes these tick marks so great. So I just want to fix my sheet ever so slightly here, and now that I've got that ready, we can go ahead and click on the first tick mark. Let's just add a tick mark here, right? Click on my tick mark, and what we see, which is different, is that this tick mark is not an image. I can't click on it. It is physically embedded into the cell, which means that if I'm using embedded tick marks, you need to have a column specifically for those tick marks. Because if I was to say, if I had some info in here and I added my tick mark, right, that would override the information that you have. So just be careful with that. Then the next thing we see is that when I click on my tick mark, it automatically updates my tick mark legend. So this is why the embedded tick marks are so great, right? They work really nicely with the tick mark legend. So you never need to worry about updating your tick mark legend. In fact, you'll see the tick mark legend options. These options over here that we use for image tick marks are not available. Okay. Now, so what happens if I accidentally add a whole bunch of tick marks over here and I only needed them to be in certain spaces, right? So let's just give this a second for it to add all of the tick marks. And there we go. So what happens in this case is that very easy, because it's in the actual cell, we can just go ahead and click on delete, and that will remove those items for us. So it's like deleting anything else. Okay. And for those with the keen eyes who saw the difference that happened in these two cells, right? This is the downside of the embedded tick marks. So I'm just going to add these two tick marks again, and you'll see that one tick mark is smaller than the other. And that is because of how Excel deals with embedded tick marks. The embedded tick marks will always take the size of the cell, like the cell that you're giving it. So if I make my cell longer, my tick mark will get bigger. If I make my cell smaller, my tick mark will get smaller, right? But this is still very easy to deal with, because all you need to do really is make the column that you use your tick marks in smaller, and then you'll be good to go, because that will then ensure that you have a consistent size all the way through. Even if, let's just add let's add one here. Even if I add a tick mark here and I increase the size there, it is still going to stay the same size inside the cell. Okay. Now, the other thing we also need to take into consideration is the location of the tick mark. Now, before, we had to change the location specifically by going into manage tick marks and changing our tick location. But that's grayed out. That's not available, because we can simply use the already embedded Excel, Excel function for alignment, right? To align the items to the center, to align them to the right. For these items, maybe we want to align them to the middle, maybe we want them aligned to the top instead. Whatever the case might be, we'll be able to do that here. Okay, so that's just an easy way to align and change the alignment of your tick marks. Now, the type of tick mark you end up choosing to use is completely up to you and your firm, right? But I do suggest that if everybody in the firm uses the same tick mark type, just to make sure that you don't have any issues with the different items. Okay. So that is, in essence, how to use the embedded tick marks.